everybody. Welcome to the IFTA Screen Discussion Series, putting focus on each of the feature films submitted for this year's IFTA Awards. Every week, we're putting the spotlight on a variety of diverse feature projects representing the best of Irish filmmaking. And today, I'm delighted to be joined by the filmmakers behind Holy Island. So I'm joined today by writer-director Robert Manson, producer Claire McCabe, actors Jean-Nicole Nionla and Connor Madden, and composer and sound designer James Latimer. So welcome, guys. And I'll start off with you, Robert. I guess this is a film that can be sort of difficult to sum up in a quick summary, and difficult to define in simple terms. So I'm interested for you, when you were trying to get the film initially financed and then trying to recruit people to work with you on it, what were the main sort of references you drew from in pitching to people what you were setting out to achieve?
Well, in like one phrase, you can probably call this film a reflection of Celtic purgatory, and one that you would maybe construct of your own life or where you come from. We had a bursary from the Arts Council, which is called the Authored Works, and the main thrust of this award is that they're looking for artistic projects that are sort of breaking the lines between how narrative can be constructed in a filmic context. So they're looking for experimental filmmakers with an auteur background. I had made a feature film a few years previously, about 5 years before this, which was a lot sort of like self-financed and everything. So I think I brought that to the table, showing a film that could be made for relatively small means, but having a kind of a cinematic scope and festival potential and everything. So that's more or less what we went into our pitching session with. And then, of course, like we had a rather strange and unique story that we wanted to tell. And this was the perfect bursary and the perfect moment to try and get the award. So we're very happy to get it and build this lovely cast and crew that are here in part to discuss it further.
And at what point do you get involved, Claire, as the producer, and how did you find the Arts Council bursary in terms of how it shaped the way that the film was being pitched?
Yeah, so I got involved. Rob, there was a producer, great producer called John Wallace, who hooked myself and Rob up, and we met, and Rob showed me his previous work. And we chatted about Holy Island, and yeah, I really wanted to work with Rob, and I really wanted to work on the project. So we went into the Arts Council, and after we were selected, the bursary, I guess with other funding strands, you might have to go through like development for a while or a few years. But the amazing thing about the Arts Council bursaries, they're production finance. So you can essentially go into production the following 6 months to a year. So that was absolutely incredible. And as Rob was saying, it's very much auteur-led. So we had complete creative freedom with the script, and we delivered a rough cut to the Arts Council for notes. But I guess predominantly they were happy for us to kind of run with it and see what we could shoot in that year.
Right. And so much of the film is obviously shot on location, and in these locations that feel familiar but also very strange. So I'm interested in, for either of you, in terms of how you scouted these locations and ultimately were able to navigate filming so much of it outdoors and on location in general.
Yeah, well, while Rob was in Germany at the time, and it was when the pandemic was happening. So I scouted a lot of the locations with Rob's family members. And so a lot of the filming is in and around Wicklow, where Rob has grown up his whole entire life. And that's where scouting initially happened, was with Rob's family. And then Rob came over then in pre-production, and we nailed down the locations with a location scout and a location manager. But I'll let Rob speak about the importance of the locations, because I know that was really important part of the story.
Yeah, so I would have shot in a lot of these locations during university and film school, doing kind of smaller productions with much smaller cast and crew numbers. And basically, when you're making student films, no one really cares what you're up to, as long as you don't do any damage to locations, exterior, interior. So bringing a feature film there is a different sort of organization. It's a bigger beast, like, so you have to take logistics into account. Where is your base, and what can certain locations withhold with regards to numbers? And we also had to follow protocols with regards to like the pandemic and everything. So certain locations mightn't have been our choice locations mightn't have been available. So we had to be kind of flexible and find alternatives, or sometimes having to switch a location at the last minute. But every location in the film is something that I would have maybe had some part of my youth experienced in, be it like the bar would have been my very first, job as a 13, 14-year-old, or like the beach is where I grew up, close to Wicklow town as well, where I went to school. So these are all places that I know for the entirety of my life, but maybe I haven't been to them in over 10 years. So in a way, it's more an investigation of where I grew up as well. That forms the basis of this sort of surreal analysis when it comes to filmmaking, because once you've made a film in these locations, then it's sort of locked into the projects. That's it. Your previous experience in those places, it evaporates, because all you can see is the film. So, and you walk through the footsteps of the characters there afterwards. So I'm kind of happy that they're all collected now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have any kind of ownership of them anymore. They're a holy island. That's it.
And you've both mentioned the challenges of the pandemic, but I wonder, do you think it feels like you've made the film almost at the perfect time, in terms of the kind of isolation and the eeriness that runs through the film is almost as reflective of real life as it could ever be, kind of in terms of the last 2 or 3 years? Do you think that there's something special about having made it in the past 2 or 3 years versus maybe 7 or 8 years ago?
Definitely added an extra surrealist layer, I think, because everyone is locked inside their houses. So we had a lot of empty streets and empty towns. Yeah, so it definitely added an eerie quality to some of these places that would be much highly populated with people, in what they are now, I guess, as well. So yeah, it gave us the freedom to get out there and make the film, and yeah, no one was on our backs or anything. So it was nice. It was calm, and it added an extra presence to places, because we didn't have to rush. We could take our time and really like feel how, becoming more organic in a sense in a place, like, taking a moment to just pause and reflect before engaging in the actual filmmaking. So I think that's definitely seen on screen.
For you, James, when you're designing the sound for this, I suppose the sound of the film is so important in creating this eerie atmosphere, and things feel a little off kind of constantly. So is it challenging for you, compared to other things you've worked on, to make sure that the sound kind of reflects the atmosphere that Robert's been going for with the locations?
I wouldn't necessarily say difficult. I think that a lot of the picture kind of suggested a lot for me. The setting, the black and white footage as well in particular. I think, and Rob's notes itself, like, I think I got it very early on. Like, my approach was initially as just a sound designer, and then I came on board as a composer, and it was definitely kind of the blend of those two things helped me kind of, juggle those two things. So if I did want to get creepy with the sound design, I could kind of mold that and kind of fuse that with the score. So yeah, no, I think it was definitely all there with Robert's references and kind of and him steering the way. It was definitely something that I found kind of easy to jump into. And as well as back to location and stuff as well, I just recently moved to Wicklow, so it was kind of exploratory anyway for me to kind of get around the town and get my microphone out and find these kind of creepy little places. So a lot of the sound isn't necessary from libraries. A lot of it is actually kind of collected from the town itself and the locations. So yeah, I think, yeah, no, it wasn't difficult. You know, it was kind of, I found it quite, you know, easy to jump on board and kind of work with the picture, you know.
Mhm. And later in the film, I guess music starts to play a more important role, and there's music performed within the film. What, between Robert and James, was there discussions between the two of you in terms of how music would be incorporated, or was that largely something you had planned in the script, Robert?
Well, I was going through a little bit of phase of watching like films by Powell Pressburger, you know, Colonel Blimp, Canterbury Tales, something like this, like, or even The Matter of Life Death is a good reference for the film aesthetically, with the black and white and the color. Also the sound design and the soundtrack, is that there's a sort of intertwining between what the soundscape would be in general in the space, like a kind of reclusive and derelict spaces, but then there's these little sort of notes that would carry on the winds that create a sort of a self-awareness for the characters. I didn't want to in any way break any fourth walls or anything like that, but I like the idea that characters can sort of question their reality in a place based on some triggering elements. And I think James really pushed that element in particular with the music and how they kind of intertwined with the soundscape, because one always links the other, or one always triggers the other, or there's something there that causes that process to unfold, I think.
And when you're casting the film, obviously we have two of the main actors here with us today. So what were the main sort of traits, I guess, of these two characters? Then obviously Connor's character sort of evolves into a younger version of the character. What were you sort of both looking for, and also how did you kind of tell these actors what you wanted from them when they came in and started rehearsals for these parts?
Well, first and foremost, I thought, like, you know, again, harking back to A Matter of Life and Death, that there's this sort of elements that you're questioning, what is this space? And, you know, it's purgatory. So what is purgatory? It's a timeless and ageless place where maybe all facets of your life can exist concurrently. And I thought also that maybe like there could be, you know, a child version of the David character lingering around somewhere in the background. And then there's definitely the teenage version, which is portrayed by Dermot Murphy in the second part of the film. Connor is there throughout the piece, and he is like the main participants in the linear storyline. And of course, Rosa is some sort of like hybrid amalgamation of all characters in one, that they all have to sacrifice themselves to rescue this the hopeful character at the end, and that they have a chance to re-enter the world, or to voyage across the sea to paradise. But I mean, these were sort of my general points and ideas. I'd be interested to see for the first expression, or, you know, what was your idea of it, Connor and Shan? What do you think? Maybe Connor first. What was your first interpretation of the script, and what made you come on our voyage with us?
Yeah, I read it. I'd seen your previous stuff, your previous one with Ty Murphy, the one set in Berlin, and I really liked it. Really liked the, you know, your style and your eye or whatever. So when the agent got onto me with this, I was like, oh man, you know, it could be exciting or whatever. So I read the script and spoke to you and was like, what's going on here? Like, what's this all about, you know? And then you said, like, oh, you've definitely read it, so, because you don't know what's going on. And I just really kind of liked the, you know, the kind of bleakness of it. You know, I think that the bleakness of the guy, like, basically, it felt like, you know, like everything had been spent for this guy. Like everything had been, he had done everything, he'd lived, and what was left for him to do kind of wasn't worth doing for him or something. That's kind of how it felt. That's how it felt for me, reading it or whatever. But yeah, and then you told me some stuff, and we had a chat about like Irish mythology and stuff like that, and I was like, this will be great crack. And I think this just before COVID. No, it was just as COVID was getting going, and then COVID, like COVID played a big, like you were talking about how great it was. Like we had to travel home. Like Claire used to drive me home, with the windows open in the car, after 12-hour shoot in the rain, like the wind blowing in, 40 minutes up, like in Wicklow or whatever, and like you're kind of going, like, yeah, it was the right choice, but like there was points in the shoot I was like, it's the right choice here. And my wife was heavily pregnant at the time, so I couldn't see her for a while afterwards either, because like, you know, I didn't want to give her anything. But anyway, it was great.
And Jean-Nicole, what was your first impression of the project when Robert approached you for this part?
Yeah, I remember reading it and being really drawn to Rosa as a character, because I suppose the similarities between myself and her. And yeah, the feeling of like being an ancient soul, I've always felt really old inside. And it just like resonated with Rosa as a person. And then I loved that it was set in kind of a non-existent reality, but also like a really familiar landscape. So like you're reading parts of it and you're like, oh, that's very Irish. There's the pub, that's your taxi man. But then also like none of it is familiar in its own way because it's its own world. Yeah, it just seemed like a really interesting project to get on board.
Your character is probably the most normal behaved in the film to start with. Like Rosa is pretty chatty and friendly and doesn't seem to be as kind of lost and disaffected by this weird environment as everyone else. Did you feel like you had to put a lot of the strangeness into your acting here, or did you just play it as if Rosa was living in a normal day in Ireland? Like,
I don't know if I'd call Rosa close to normal as the character. I felt like she was really weird, but maybe yeah, in comparison to like the others. I felt like she was playful with the world that she was in and aware of it not being normal, and just like it's like when you're in a place and you don't really care about it, so you just decide to like take the piss, and I felt like Rosa does that with the world around her, like any of us kind of would. Well, I would.
And Connor, your character obviously gets sort of switched out halfway through the film for this younger version, and you're both kind of existing simultaneously within the film. Did you enjoy the challenge of knowing another actor would sort of be sharing your part, and did you collaborate at all to try and maintain some consistency of who this man was as the film goes on?
We talked a lot about it, but I really enjoyed, like, it was a funny thing, like acting, like, or I guess creating things is collaborative anyway. So I've never done something like this before, where somebody steps in basically and plays you. And so I was able to take things that he did and kind of like rust them, you know, make them kind of just creakier. So like some of his movements, the way he sat and stuff, Dermot Murphy, I was able to kind of just make a bit rustier, you know, that he'd been doing for years, and like it's all fresh and full of joy when Dermot was doing it. But like when it gets to 20 or 25 years later or whatever it was, it's like I guess he's just a broken dude, like not broken, just kind of done with it all, you know. That's what it was. So we spoke a lot about it. We, you know, had over a bottle of wine or whatever, chatted about it. But I let him, like, I let him lead, you know, that kind of way. Because he's the foundation, like he's the original David, you know. So my performance, I could have picked things up after in life, in time, you know. So but yeah, it was really cool. It was really interesting. Yeah.
Great. I'd love to ask you, Robert, as well about the look of the film. It's obviously primarily in black and white, but there's really strong use of color that comes in, and there's footage that seems like a mix of archive footage and some film footage you shot yourself that resembles archive footage. I'm interested in what the balance is there of what's archive and what's original, and why you decided to use this black and white color kind of mix as well.
Well, first and foremost, our amazing cinematographer Evan Barry was, we were building this kind of look together based on references and everything from modern to to you know, I was also looking at a lot of poetic realist films at the time, like Le Jean Renoir and Jean Vigo, and basically films that I didn't really want to take too much influence from, but then became heavily influenced by the work. So in a nutshell, again, there's a citation in the A Matter of Life and Death, where the characters who have recently died they're in queue at the pearly gates to heaven, and they're sort of discussing, why is everything now in black and white? And the answer to that question is because you're in heaven, there's no life in heaven, there's no time. So when one of the sentinels from God is sent down to collect another character who's forgotten that he's dead and has to, you know, get back in line up in heaven, the angel who goes down is thrown into beautiful technicolor, and that would have been at the transitional point between black and white and technicolor. And he sort of looks around and says, look, this color is so vibrant, you know, life is ready for the living, and earth is where life is. So in that, we wanted to try and translate that theory, or that aesthetic foundation into our film. And we're juxtaposing between like 5K footage from the red, which is all the black and white material, which would probably represent 85% of what you see on screen, with some Super 16, where the characters in moments of like real forgetfulness of being trapped in a lifeless space recapture moments of their life. So we see that in Super 16 in dance sequences, or in moments where they break through that divide between living and stagnation. And then over the top of everything, there is an extra layer of material, which is the Super 8 archival footage that we got digitized. And all this footage comes from my father. He would have shot it between 1978 and 1982 when he was at the Dún Laoghaire Art College, which was formerly housed actually in Dún Laoghaire. And I've been experimenting with that material for a couple of years, just using it for small little experimental art films and things. And I decided, come on, let's go for it. Like, let's interweave this material into the whole film. And the thinking behind that really is that it's somebody else's memories. You know, it's not the memories of the characters per se. It's more so kind of a collective memory pool or Gaia that all souls swim through on that transitional period between living and dying. So it's a little bit of a trick for the audience as well. Like, some audience members might turn around at the end of the film and say, oh, I really like that Super 8 material. That was my favorite part. If you do say that, then you've lost the game because it's meant to distract you. It's meant to sort of pacify you, and it's meant for the characters who perceive these images to sort of to stop living, you know, to become reclined and wooden or whatever. So Rosa's character actively tries to prevent David's character from giving in to the momentary bliss of experiencing and enjoying these images that are not necessarily his. But yeah, what does everybody else think on that point? What did you think, Claire? I mean, everybody loves the Super 8. And my dad is chuffed to bits to hear that. So it was a nice little creative handshake between me and him. We got to work on the film together anyway. So
yeah, I love the Super 8. Yeah, I love that. And that was definitely there's that carnival moment at the end where you're watching the film, and then it's kind of like, I don't know, you just breathe and sit in the cinema and relax as this like really great tune. I can't remember the name of the song that plays over that carnival section. But yeah, it's just so great to see in a cinema. And then to go back into the film and go towards Rosa's journey. She runs towards the last scene that was shot in the boat. So yeah, and it was amazing as well working with Rob's dad, not on the Super 8 footage, but he was also the art director. So like Rob's family brought so much to the film, like throughout, from beginning to end, like from the location referees to filming and to art direction. So yeah. So yeah, I absolutely love the Super 8 section. And I think like what's really amazing about, you know, Holy Island, and what's so great about experimental drama that's coming out of Ireland is it's so different. because I think every one of us, you know, like we work on a lot of different sections of film. We might work on commercials, or we might work on TV drama. And maybe James, you can speak to this a little bit more, but you know, you can really play with something that's artistic and experimental. And I know the conversations between, you know, Rob and James and Rob and Connor and Jan, you could have a lot more kind of like fun with it. And we were all kind of like collaborating on it together, rather than I guess, you know, like a commercial or TV drama where this is what you have to do to get it broadcast or get it up online. So there was a lot more kind of like freedom and integrity and creativeness throughout. That was amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree. I think there's definitely the elements with an art house piece like this that anything is possible. And like, I have a lot of experience in being the final deliverables for festivals and stuff, and you kind of have to hit these specs and stuff. Now, not to say we didn't do it with this film, but I kind of pushed it in certain ways so we could be a bit more experimental, especially with the sound. And if a lot of people may see this on a screen at home, but I think it's definitely a piece that was made for the cinema itself. I'm sure, like, the idea with a lot of festivals, when you're submitting, a lot of the people that are in charge or programmers will watch it on a laptop, you know, and it's unfortunate. Like, you kind of hope to kind of get it past that point that it does play in a theater, because I think that's essentially what the film was made for, you know. And Rob, being such a cinephile himself, I think that's his intention from start to finish. It's not about seeing it on a laptop or on a TV. Would you agree, Rob?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean, and I have to say thank you again for the screening that we had in Savoy 2 weeks ago. That was sort of, in a way, maybe my first arrival at the film as the kind of audience member, because it would have been a little bit more maybe pressure from the launch in cinemas in October, or at festivals where you're really kind of experiencing it for the first time with people. So that was a beautiful moment, just to sit with my friends and my family and really be in the film, because the screen is so close to the sitting area in Screen 2 in Savoy. And oh, it's spectacular. I'm still sort of reeling in that experience. So that was great. Thanks very much for that. What did you guys think, Connor and Shan? Like, because I think, like, with the Super 8 in particular, like, that was always a kind of a bonus package. I mean, you wouldn't really have known anything about it really in the script. I think it's sometimes maybe mentioned, but even my father was very surprised to see so much of Super 8 in the final cut. Like, because I'd used maybe 30 seconds in my previous film as a sort of an opener to try and get the audience on board with the character and make them a bit more compassionate, but not throughout like it is in this film. What did you guys think? Jean, maybe first.
I remember one of my favorite was the same with Claire. The carnival towards the end is something like really, really special about that, and it's so fun seeing that for the first time. It being when you go to the cinema, like, I'd no idea what that was gonna look like. I wasn't there for the filming of it. No one was. So I think it was like a really nice surprise for everyone when you come and you watch this piece. It's completely new to everyone. Yeah, it was really beautiful. And then I also loved, do you know the dance sequence with Rosa? What was that shot on? That was
in Super 16, yeah.
That was also, another favorite of mine. I thought that was really stunning. Just that, like, alongside the music and everything, like, that just was a really special moment in the film.
And it's mad as well when it goes from black and white to color. You really do feel that, like, I don't know, breath of life, don't you, just coming out in the characters?
Yeah, totally.
Do you guys as actors agree with kind of what Claire was saying about how a film being more experimental probably gives a bit more space for you as artists to create something that maybe doesn't stick entirely to the script? Like, do you guys feel like you had more room than usual to sort of work yourselves and build these characters out and have more input?
Yeah, I felt definitely that there was so much space, and we were allowed a lot of time to chat that you wouldn't necessarily feel that you had in other circumstances, and to just talk through things, understand things, give your own opinion, which is, like, just really nice to have that freedom as an artist or an actor. What about you, Connor?
Yeah, I thought so too. think that like on the Super 8 thing, you know, there's a, like Robert said, the creative handshake between the father and son or whatever, but it like it cements the film in like a timeless space. Like I know the whole film is in purgatory and it's timeless and whatever, apart from we're actually running out of time, which that's funny. But anyway, the film is cemented in timeless space. That's what it feels like. I think it's absolutely beautiful, you know. I think in terms of performance or in terms of like creative freedom, I think it makes you think differently about you know, you go from being like a small cog in a big machine to being a bigger cog in a big machine. That's what it felt like, you know. It gives you some real ownership of your performance, you know, or of your character, which is cool. So.
And I think the way that you work as a director, Rob, as well, is you give people a lot of space. Like I remember when Manacon McGann, he was the priest in the film, and he has a really great soliloquy. But Rob and him, they worked on it together, and you know, he could really kind of liberally express his artistic creativity through that soliloquy, which I think a lot of the times you might not get with directors. So yeah, I think even in the way that Rob approached the film, it was to give everybody a little bit of space and to chat about the process rather than just to shoot it. Yeah.
For you, Robert and Claire, are there projects you'd like to, like, are you planning on working on projects in future that both of you individually, I guess, or together, that are similar in this in terms of the stories they tell, or would you like to work within this framework again, this sort of bursary, or the sort of framework this bursary provided, I guess?
Yeah, Rob has 1,000,001 projects, so I'll let you go first, Rob.
Well, I sort of I fell into a little bit of a Super 8 black hole after this film. So what I decided to do was to accumulate an awful lot of it and to get it digitized again, to form again a sort of a backbone for another project that I'm working on with the Arts Council. And because there was so much of it, it sort of organically split into two. So I have now two experimental documentary films that are on a new theme. And I finished the first part now, which is an hour-long, fully Super 8 film. So anyone who liked that stuff is going to really like this. Yeah, I mean, the Arts Council are amazing just because they give you, you know, security as a creative, and just sort of like they give you that grounding that makes you know that you're up for it, you know, you're ready for that project, or you're up for, you know, for presenting cutting edge material on a world stage. So I'm very happy to be working with them again on these two films, and yeah, let's see where everything goes, I guess.
Great. I think that's a great note to wrap up on. So thank you so much for chatting to me, guys, today, and congratulations on Holy Island, and best of luck. And I really appreciate getting to hear more about the making of the film from all of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Millie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.